It's blind on blind. Small blind limps. Davide Katai. He's a professional from Europe, a French guy or Belge. I think from Belgium or France. Very aggressive. He's got millions in earnings. I think 4 or 5 millions on Hand and Mob. Anyway, he decides to open ace-10, which the solver approves. He makes it exactly like the solver says, 3.5 bigs, small blind calls. Flop is ace-9. It's a monotone flop, ace-high, all diamonds. Davide doesn't have a diamond. We don't know Villain's hand because he's narrating in real time, and there's no RFID, so he's playing the guessing game. Later on, the player says what he has. And I'm not gonna say his hand yet. So it goes check, bet, raise on the flop, and Villain's blink rate goes nuts. He starts blinking really hard when Davide makes the bet, and I want to talk about tells. He's giving off all kinds of tells here in that spot, and Davide decides to fold the hand. But here we don't know Villain's hand. He tells him later on break. Actually, not on break. When they were bagging, he's like, "What did you have that hand?" And he tells him what he had, and I don't think he was lying. But let's watch the hand real quick. This is from inside the mind of a pro.
De nouveau, il nous laisse en bataille de blind. Limp. Ouais, j'ai une main très forte et cette fois je le couvre. Je fais bien entendu raise. $55. Allez, call, ça ne dérange pas. Je joue un pot avec une belle main en position. Trouve une top pair, je vais essayer bet ici.
By the way, this is the 10K at the win. They had the biggest prize pool. It was, I think, 6 million for first place. That the one that they had in 2023. The 10K buy-in.
Peut-être un flop un peu dangereux. Il peut avoir des mains suitées, il peut avoir des doubles paires. Il y a beaucoup de fortes mains qui sont dans sa range. Wow. Check raise, je ne m'attendais pas trop à ça. Wow, c'est sick de check raise spots.
Notice Villain's blink rate here. His eyes are going crazy.
Je sais pas, je pense pas qu'il est fou de le faire en pur bluff. Je pense dans sa range de limp call, il y a beaucoup de mains suitées. Peut check raise direct une flush ici. Je crois pas qu'il a trop envie de me bluff ici. C'est quoi ces bluffs finalement? Une main comme Dame Valet avec un carreau, je pense qu'il les aurait call. Je vois pas une tonne de bluff ici. Est-ce que je peux faire ce sick fold? J'ai quand même une main très forte ici. J'ai l'habitude de jouer contre des Américains depuis 3 jours, mais lui c'est un Européen, ils sont plus agressifs. C'est assez sick de folder ça. En même temps, la stratégie là, c'est de respecter les relances, de jouer low variance. Il a beaucoup de mains suitées, je fold, je m'en fous. Je vais pas me level. Il n'y a pas de honte à faire le lâche.
He's like, there's no shame in being a coward here in French. So, okay, let's hear the thought process. What's worst case scenario? What's best case scenario as far as Villain's hand? What is he raising with? What hands is he raising with?
Well, I almost folded trips. So depending on the situation and stack sizes and how far we are in the tournament, the level of decisions change a lot.
By the way, to be fair, they were close to the money. They were like 10 or 15 from the money down to like 400 something players.
Yeah.
So they were close to the money. ICM was definitely in play here.
Exactly.
The GTO solution is only EV solution, not ICM solution. But worst case scenario would be all the sets. A lot of king X hands that have a king of diamond would take that line. So hands that we're beating, best case scenario for Davide are all the king X hand, queen X hand that might take that line. I don't feel like this guy is getting out of line. Of course, he has a bunch of flushes like queen high, jack high, 10 high. All these hands are going to take that line. He's never raising an ace X hand. He's not that type of player. Some amateurs would raise an ace X hand and they just want to play their hand fast. He has some two pairs that would take that line that have Davide beat. The only hands that Davide doesn't have beat are king X, queen X with the diamond. That he's ahead now, but he still has to play the guessing game on the turn and river, especially in a 6 spot like that. What are you guys doing in the ICM spot with ace high? You have no playability, you have no diamond. What's the thought process here?
Carl, would you consider telling me why do you think he folded?
It's just a marginal spot. There's way better spots that we can take at that phase of the tournament. Like I said, if he makes the call here, okay, like let's sometimes if you make the call and villain has a king X or queen X with the queen of diamond or king of diamond, he's gonna slow down on the turn. So yeah, you can probably see a free turn, but there's no room for improvement. It's just such a marginal spot. And if you're behind, you're way behind. There's no improvement. Like, what card are you hoping for on the turn to improve? Even if a 10 falls, even if an ace falls and you're way behind, like let's say villain flopped the flush, you're just not feeling good about the hand. And you know he's gonna barrel, like a flush is gonna barrel turn and river. So I think Davide at that point had 40 bigs. So the stack is going in by the river in a very marginal spot. You can wait for way better spots than these. Should just take your loss, lose the minimum in that spot, and just move on. And villain ends up having a flush. He had queen 7 of diamond. He flopped it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's your thought process? Are you continuing in that spot? 10,
No,
15?
I love the fact that Davide is thinking about how much it's gonna cost until the river. If I try to go into a guessing game now, because so many times we overvalue like tail read that drives us to spend a lot of chips until the river, and that tail was not confirmed by other tails in order to justify the call on the flop. And then and you feel committed when you're on the river, and if you go like, oh my goodness, I put so much money here now, maybe I'm good here. And then when you made the bad call on flop, turn, and river, it costs you emotionally so much that you cannot even measure the amount of chips that is going to cost you until the end of the tournament, not only in that particular hand. So I love the decision by that. We tend to make poker very difficult, and the easiest decisions are the cheapest ones, because you can also always recoup a small amount of chips, but it's difficult to recoup a big amount of chips. Of course, this kind of approach can put somebody in a very passive way of playing, but if you know how to balance that, you're going to be saving a lot of chips, and saving chips is like making chips.
Agree. This is what the strategy looks like. Small blind, big blind. I want to ask what you guys are doing. Small blind, big blind.
But I didn't hear Gabriel about it.
Let's hear it, Gabe.
You know, this hand's pretty interesting. I really think I disagree with the fold, but it hinges on like how we want to structure, right? Because if we're thinking about poker, at our level, we're not playing against players who are really getting after it that much. So when we make value hands against higher level competition, which we should assume a 10K is going to be higher level, we don't necessarily make a lot, or I shouldn't say we make money on our opponents trying to bluff us, right? So if we start folding hands, we're actually like losing a lot of money. It's not, we're not necessarily always getting money because we're betting for value. We're getting money because we're bluff catching, right? So if I ever choose to bet this flop, I'm never folding to a raise. I think that's preposterous. But I think if we're willing, and you talk about thinking ahead, Josias, this is like a good thing to think about. We should be thinking ahead to like what our bet's doing and what happens if we get raised. So if I bet and I get raised, I should be, and maybe I can just already say like, hey, I'm just going to fold. This person's imbalanced. They're not bluffing enough. I'm just going to be behind. My hand can't improve. Y'all kind of talked about that. But if I'm willing to fold to a check raise, I should just check the flop.
Well said.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It's possible, and I haven't studied like blind versus blind, like monotone flops, especially like the stack depth. But it's possible he could have like ace-x that he's check raising for value too.
Is he? That's the thing on a monotone board, and that guy hasn't gotten out of line. They were playing for a good 45 minutes, and that hand happened. So this is all dependent on villain. Does he get out of line too much? Monotone boards aren't bluffed, like they're under bluffed. People don't get out of line too much. So if we think he's doing it for value, we're not beating any value hands, like the two pairs, the sets. He shouldn't have that many sets. He has a bunch of flushes in his range. There are flop flushes. Two pairs we're not beating, sets we're not beating, and the king X, queen X, diamonds, like those are the hands that are gonna take that line. That they're gonna have playability on turns and rivers. We don't have room to improve. Like with ace 10, we have zero room to improve, and there's ICM pressure. So you're gonna be playing the guessing game. And I mean, you're gonna hope best case scenarios like villain is gonna give up on the turn if he gets called on the flop. The thing is, like blind on blind, those spots people make a lot of mistakes. I played a 5-bet pot last time against I'm gonna name him Tony Pellegrini. He's a pretty solid player, doesn't get out of line too much. I open, he 3-bet, and I'll tell you his hand later, and let me see what you guys think. I opened small with what did I have? I had ace 4 of diamonds, ace 4 suited. He 3-bets, and he sizes big. He sizes like almost 4x, which is totally unnecessary. He makes it 4x. I decide to 4-bet, and I 4-bet 2.5x his sizing, and he completes snap calls. The thing is, Tony doesn't like to be played back at. So flop comes 10-10. It was 10-10 3 1 diamond. I continue. I see bet. He calls. Turn comes a king. I slow down. Like I have a lot of ace kings there. A bunch of ace kings. I check turn. He checks. River comes a brick like a 7. I bomb river. He snap call. He beats me to the pot. He had pocket 5s. So blind on blind is a weird dynamic. People don't give you credit for a hand. Like I put it in the solver. The solver is actually continuing with 5s. But like, how often are you going to get a favorable flop unless you flop a set? You're not getting the right price to flop a set. But I was surprised that the solver is not folding 5s to a 4-bet blind on blind. So I guess he played it correctly.
Well, I don't think it folds a lot of pairs in general, just because of like how we're going to realize our equity, right? We hit sets and big pots. Our price sometimes is good, especially in like a 4-bet where we're not like 3 or 4xing. So that might kind of influence some of that. And I agree with everything you're saying about like the villain, not in your hand, but in the this hand we watched with Davidi. It's all about how we range him, right? But if there's ICM pressure and we don't think that this person, like, are we getting like that much value out of our hand on an ace-high flop on a monotone board against someone?
On monotone boards, the solver likes to keep the pot as small as possible. So a check and a bet have the same EV there. Like it's very tiny EV difference in checking and betting. And I think with ICM, I love a check there. Like our hand is completely fine to take a turn. We don't have room to improve, but we don't want to bloat the pot because when we bet and get raised, you're hating life. If he had a diamond, if he had ace 10 with the 10 of diamond, for example, Yeah, you can continue, but ace-10 without diamond, you get raised, you're just hating life. Whenever your hand doesn't have room to improve, you don't want to play a big pot. Sometimes you got to put your foot down and just call down. If you think villain is like against certain players, like at Hard Rock, for example, when they get out of line too much in spots, yeah, you put your foot down and just call down. But against some players, you're dead. You're just putting money dead, especially with ICM. It's a huge buy-in.
Yeah.
I love the fold, honestly.
Davide Katai, if we look at poker, and I'm sure like you two have each kind of looked at poker through this lens, Davide Katai is an image. He plays a lot of hands. This guy's opening 9-10-0 from the low jack, like in early levels and stuff like that. Obviously, this is a little bit later in the tournament.
9-10 isn't open from low jack.
9-10 offsuit, like he's opening like insanely wide range.
Yeah, you're opening jack 9 off, 9-10 off. All these hands are opens in low jack. I mean, yeah, he's playing hands. He's loose for sure. Let's see what the solver says in that hand. Let me share the screen here.
I would think because his range is wide and he's going to be attacking this, I think that our villain is going to be raising a lot of hands. So I don't know. I'm never bet folding here. Maybe if it's to a specific villain, like I already covered, but or let's put it this way: I'm going to be check raising Davide Katai blind versus blind an insane amount because I know
because you have bluffs. You have 3-bet bluffs. That villain wasn't getting out of line. But I mean, the call is not terrible. Of course, we're not gonna make a habit of folding top pair every time the board is scary. You know what I mean? It's just the spot warrants it, just because of the ICM pressure. There are, I think, like either 5 or 10 from the money. I think that's the only reason he folded. Davide is not shy of like calling down.
There is one consideration we have to make is David is a very good player. Depending on the dynamics of the table, he realized already who are the players who are capable of doing trying to
getting out of
line. Yeah, exactly. And he realized who are the players who are not capable of doing anything out of line. So maybe this guy was fit into the category of, this guy would never try to backplay. So if he's doing this.
Earlier in this session, he labeled him as European and aggressive, but he didn't show any aggression prior to this hand. He never did anything out of line. It was just ABC, poker, at least the hands that went to showdown. So that he based his decision on that, ICM. Let's see what look at the solver here. We're limping about 52%. So we're limping 50%, opening 50% of hands. We always use the polarized range, so we're gonna open like our worst hands and our best hands, all the value, of course, all the pocket pairs, a bunch of suited broadways. We're opening our trash hands that don't want to go post flop, just like 3-6, 5 deuce suited, all the suited hands. We're mixing here, and I play the same. I play a mixed strategy here, small blind, big blind. I'm limping a lot. And I'm not folding to like opens. So any king X, queen X, and the solver does the same. Even offsuit. I did a trainer, like a drill, with the new peak GTO from Jonathan Little, and I was making mistakes. I was folding like king 7 off. Like I would limp king 7 off, and the solver would open, and I would fold. Those hands are continuing. So we're not folding much. Of course, we like our hand to be suited. We always like to continue with the suited combos. So small blind, mixed strategy. Big blind, ace-10 suited is slam dunk open 100% of the time. And it's 3.5. That's exactly what Davide did. And we're opening also a polarized range. We're opening all our good hands. 4s plus. Most of the ace-X suited, ace down to ace-7, ace-6 off. We're opening all these hands and a bunch of trash offsuit and suited. So this is where I mean by polarized. See all the garbage here? Jack 4 off, 10 4 off, 9 4 off. All these hands, we don't want to go to a flop that don't play well post flop. We're opening all these hands, also using 3.5x, and the playable hands, suited broadways, suited aces, the suited kings. That's what range looks like here. So Davide opens, small blind defends, this is what small blind range is going to look like. We're not folding much. All the blues are folds. Basically, the complete garbage. Everything else is continuing. So 4-5 off, 5-6 off. These hands are folding sometimes, and continuing almost everything. Okay, this is the flop. Small blind is gonna check like 90% of the time, which he should. And then big blind bets. I'm here. We should bet small, of course. The highest percentage is bet like one big blind. It's 32% of the time. And then this is how the small blind is going to react. Of course, all the flop flushes are going to raise. There's a lot of continuing here. And big blind, just because it's not an ICM spot, big blind, I mean, solver doesn't like to fold top pairs. Solver doesn't like to do much of folding anyway.
Well, we can also, when we're thinking about like ICM, right, we can think about pre-flop and the fact that we even raised our hand pre-flop to begin with, right? So if we're scared about ICM situations, I mean, ace-10 suited is a very strong hand. I'm not going to say that we shouldn't be raising here. But if we're approaching this in a certain way, like, why are we inflating pots? You know, like.
So you're saying check flop?
I'm saying we can just check back pre-flop.
We can, yeah. I mean, we're gonna play a mixed strategy. Ace-10 suited falls, and opening is fine, and just playing cautious post flop. Opening is fine, limping is fine. All options are on the table. It's not like, I mean, here the solver is a slam dunk open without ICM. In ICM, if you want to keep the pot small, checking pre-flop is completely fine too.
Yeah, ICM. I would just check behind.
We can also look at those pre-flop ranges. He has so much offsuit king X hands that reach this flop, and if you actually look at his limp calls, because he should be folding a lot, it's a lot of suited hands, right? When you think about how many diamond combinations there are, it's really not that much, right? So all of a sudden, he's actually reaching the flop with, I mean, it's going to be a heavy suited range, but his like offsuit king X should be like where we're generating a lot of his bluffs. And I mean, all of a sudden you think about like king of diamonds, 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden we have like 3 combos of that. Now we're gonna have 3 combos of king of diamonds, jack, right? That might play the same way. Now all of a sudden we have all these naked king of diamonds hands, and we actually don't even have that many suited hands. It starts to get.
I mean, this is the only hand that we're beating. Like, this is best case scenario for us, are the combos king X hands with the king of diamond.
Davide Katai could be, you know, I don't know. I think he could be misplaying his hand here. It's probably fine. Davide Katai is a really good player, and his live reads are really good. And he's been playing with this player longer than I watched, in this hand. But I'm thinking about like all this stuff when I'm in a hand.
Since you brought up live reads, let's ask Josias. I'm still pronouncing the name wrong. Josias. Joe. I'm gonna go with Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, let's talk about live reads. What is the one tell, if there is one, that you rely on the most that made you the most money?
Well, there's one thing that is very important, is to analyze what poker players do the most when they are playing. Because not everybody folds, not everybody calls, not everybody raises, but everybody checks their cards.
Holy crap.
You have to check your cards, every single hand. So this is one thing that I think it's very important. You start your reading your tells from there, and then you need to have confirmation tells. So, for example, if somebody checks their cards very fast, I guarantee most of the times, in everything in poker, it's probability. So 95% of the times, it's not a middling hand. It's either a shitty hand or a very good hand. It's a shitty hand when they don't want to look at it anymore, and they show no interest.
When do you check your cards? Are you checking your cards right away when you get the cards, or are you checking everybody at the table and then checking your cards at the end so you don't miss that information?
It varies.
So let's say,
if I'm playing in a table where there are a lot of professionals, I'll check my card soon after I get it, because I know that they are going to be waiting to see how I check my cards. And if I wait for everybody to see their cards, I'll be like very disclosed. But if I'm playing in an environment where there's no observant players, then it doesn't matter, because they don't get the information, and when they don't know what to do with the information anyway.
Do you think you give off tells?
Oh, sometimes yes, on purpose, and sometimes I decide not to do. It always depends on the dynamics of the table. Like I played this event where Davide Katai was. In my table, there were 4 good players. So I have to be very aware of how they are approaching, how they are observing, in order to try to conduct their reactions or avoid them to take something from me, but not to a point that makes me stressed about it, because everything has to be balanced in poker. If you are very worried about am I giving off tells here, well, you're not going to be paying attention to some of the very important details of the game that you have to, in order to play when you're playing in a environment where you have to get information.
Give us one tell that you rely on. One tell.
This tell is the speed of checking the cards. We named this apex. The apex, it's one of the information that is very important, because it's going to be easy to get confirmation of this tell. So if somebody look at their cards and keep looking, most of the times they have a middling hand like 5-7 suited or offsuit, or 9-7, 9-8, 9-6, and they are considering if they're going to be playing this or not. But
so when they double check,
when I'm not talking about double checking, I'm talking about the speed of checking and bring it down to the table. It varies. When it's aces, usually people look at the cards and put it back very fast, because no one wants to call attention to a treasure. So they do it very fast. But now you need confirmation of this, because it could also be 7 deuce of suit. They look very fast and that's shit. So confirmation. What do they do after checking their cards? Do they put it outward, inward? Where do they place their hands? Do they place something on the cards in the action? Of course, if they're gonna raise or re-raise somebody, well, it's not 7 deuce, right?
Shout out to Blake Eastman, by the way. One time I gave him shit online and he got butthurt about it, and he actually made a comment. He had his whole thing about poker, his whole channel was about poker tells, and he talks about the apex, how fast people check their cards. And when you have aces, you just like hide it real quick. The thing is, you can't have, you can, I guess, but not all your content can be based on tells, because poker is way more than this. Like long time ago, when I bought Mike Carroll book of tells, I thought that if I become a professional at reading tells, I'm going to solve poker. I'm going to become a millionaire. I'm going to beat at all the games. Poker is tells are a little aspect, and some people are naturally good at it. Some people are not. This is something you can learn and get better. Some people are just naturally street. They just know how to read people, like the Caldos of the world, the Phil Ivies of the world. I bunched Caldo with Phil Ivey. Caldo is good with street, but some people just have that natural knack of reading people. They just know when people are weak or strong, or when they're lying or telling the truth. But like Blake Eastman, when you base your whole content on just tells, like, he really spent time and money on it. He put like 8 or 9 people in a lab basically and studied all their behavior. Yeah, studying behavior is good. It helps for sure. It's a tiny part of the equation. You can't.
I don't think it's that tiny. I disagree. I think it is an important aspect of the game that maybe it's not the most important, but there are some decisions, crucial decisions that I made in like final tables that were exclusively taken out of tells. People cannot control some of the tells, for example, you mentioned the blink rate. This is something very important. Of course, you have to understand microbiology and stuff to understand why this guy is like blinking so fast. Why
you have to see somebody's baseline. If his baseline is blinking fast and he's in a big hand and he's still blinking fast, that's his baseline. Nothing changed. But that guy wasn't blinking at all. And all of a sudden, when Davide made that bet, his blink rate went nuts. And later on, we found out that he had it. When I say poker tells or being good at tells is a small fraction of the equation, because let's say you study nothing but poker tells and your pre-flop game has big holes in it.
That's different.
No, I'm just saying, because you said it's a big, let's say it's 50% of the equation. Studying just poker tells, like going deep on poker tells and
it means
avoiding poker theory and what you're gonna do on every street and like or your pre-flop game alone.
Yeah, it's not gonna help you. I understand.
I say players should go dive deep on pre-flop. Pre-flop is a huge part of the game. Most people's mistakes happen in pre-flop. When I fixed my pre-flop game, my chart went just like straight up from upswing. It was, studying the charts.
There's another aspect, important aspect of poker that is like, for example, when you study everything about GTO and solvers, and seems like in some spots that you could improve your decision quality based on exploitative play. In some spots, looks like you have an excuse to burn your chips just because it's solver approved. So this is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes when you have to deviate from DTO because the guy you're playing against doesn't know what he's doing, you have to try to get everything. And sometimes this 100%. Everything is located in his body tells. That's
100%. At the end of the day, exploitative play is going to win in poker. You could study solvers all day and night. Who are the people that are winning right now? You see some of the people that are being consistent. It's because they changed few things. They adjusted to what people are doing in real time, and they're taking advantage of what people are doing, and they're countering with their own style. It doesn't have to be GTO. Yes, it's good always to know what the GTO solve.
And we have to study this. There's no way.
Optimal play is always good to know what the optimal play is. Exactly. But like you said, our opponents are not playing GTO. Their game has big holes in it. All we have to do is take advantage of the mistakes they're doing, catching punts like what Ryan Hogan, shout out to Ryan, he's crushing right now. His game is a mix of GTO and a mix of exploitative play.
I want to give you guys a suggestion. There is a podcast between Ben CB and Patrick Leonard. They are discussing exploitative and GTO, and also they are discussing ICM from the beginning of the tournament. That's a very good one. I think you guys should check it out.
You can enter any spot you want. Let's say you want to train on tournament. GTO Wizard has the same. It has the same trainer. Tournaments 8 max, 1 big blind any. You can just pick any 2 spots. Like let's say Heroes in the big blind, like kind of like the Davide spot, and Villain is
multi-way also, or just heads up.
No. The solver is always always heads up. Yeah, I think our boy Shane has jumped on here.
What's up?
What's up,
hey,
Shane?
Shane.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hey. Good morning. Yeah. What you guys up to?
We were discussing poker tells before you jumped on, and now we're talking about Jonathan Little's latest solver.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in the big blind. Villain opens to 2 big blinds. We call from the big blind. Flop comes Queen 10-4, 2 spades. We have middle pair and a flush draw. Villain bets 4.5 big blinds. Basically bets pot. What's the play on the flop?
Call.
Gabe, what do you think?
Well, I mean, am I playing like a GTO robot, or am I telling you what I think GTO would tell me? Because I know that pairs and flush draws raise a lot, but I know I call way more than a lot of people with pairs and flush draws.
Not all pairs and flush draws are built the same. Let's see what Josias does. Josias, what are you doing on the flop? Middle pair, flush draw.
I would raise.
Not all pairs and flush draws are built the same. We have bottom pair flush draw, middle pair flush draw, and top pair flush draw. Top pair and a flush draw, or open-ended straight draw and a flush draw. Those hands we want to raise. Middle pair and bottom pair, you want to play them just like you have a pair. Not you. I mean, raising is not bad, but it's the default play is Shane got it right away. It's call in that spot.
Yeah, I can say why I'm gonna raise. I'm gonna raise because if I'm in position, I want to see a river for free.
We were playing.
So it's cheaper for me to raise here and see and check turn behind since I
No,
the aggression.
we're in out of position, Joe. We're in out of position.
I thought we were big blind.
Yeah, we're out of position. We're in big blind. Villain is in hijack. We're first to act.
Oh, sorry. I thought the villain was in small blind.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I changed the scenario. This is already Jonathan adds every day a situation. They add a hand, and he discusses on every street what happens. This is his top. It's
100% call.
Well said. Yes, it's a call.
I thought I would say if it was a small blind against me and big blind, I would check. I would raise in order to maybe see the river for free if I don't realize my equity on the turn.
I mean, raising is completely fine, but the GTO solve is here. It advocates for calling. See the 10 deuce on the side here? It's calling 100%.
80 big blinds deep in a no-limit hold'em tournament. The hijack raises to 2.5 big blinds, and it folds around to you in the big blind with 10-2 of spades. The only time you want to be folding suited hands to a pre-flop raise is when you expect the initial raiser to be way better at poker than you, and you think you're not going to be playing especially well from out of position, or when the initial raiser raises quite large to, say, 4 big blinds. At that point, you can fold the weakest suited hands. But in this spot, 10-2 of spades is definitely good enough to call. So you do. The flop comes queen of spades, 10 of hearts, 4 of spades, giving you middle pair and a flush draw. You check, as you should do with your entire range, and your opponent continuation bets for 4.4 big blinds, as they should do with a lot of their range. This is a spot where they should continuation bet 100% of the time, using a mix of sizes. Who knows what your actual opponent does, but they could bet pot, 4.4 big blinds, 1.6 big blinds. They'll mix it up. So against large bet sizes, in general, you don't want to do a whole lot of raising. And against this size, the GTO strategy only raises about 6.5.
By the way, Joe, that's another important aspect. When villain bets small, we want to raise. So we can raise sometimes when he bets small. But when he bets pot, when he bets big, we tend to lean more towards calling. That's another.
Yeah, but I would never raise this flop considering the positions. I only would consider raising if he was in small blind and I am in the big blind.
I see. Makes sense.
So I agree with Shane and Gabe and you about just calling.
Shane, you got a whole new setup. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
It's a very good tool.
Of course. Shane, you got a whole new setup going on.
Yeah, I switched around the room a little bit. Yeah.
I like it. Very disco.
Yeah, this thing changes colors, whatever, but blue for now.
Guys, let's wrap it up here. Let's talk a little bit about the current situation of tournaments in town, in Tampa. What do you guys think about the way tournaments are taking kind of a dive in the rooms? I have a couple things to talk about. Couple rooms, the way they're dealing with tournaments. A couple rooms are on the upswing, and a couple rooms are just like killing tournaments. What do you guys think about the situation now?
Go ahead, Shane.
Sure. I think it's good so far. We just had Pinktober. I think it was good. We missed a guarantee on like a 600 Sunday tournament, I think. So maybe the turnout was a little low. And then they also ran like $600 or $700 like tournament on like a Tuesday, like a weekday. It was like Tuesday at noon it starts, and everyone's got jobs. They can't like yeah, come out and play like a Tuesday big tournament, like a 700. So maybe I think the scheduling wasn't like perfect. So it's hard to tell if like if the turnout was low because the timing was terrible, or if like the demand's not there. But I kind of just feel like it's because of the timing, not necessarily the demand.
The turnout was weak. I think the storm has something to do with it. I think the election is another thing. People are stressed out.
Yeah.
Especially people I feel like they're invested in this election, so people are scared to spend money a little bit. The storm was a factor too. The turnout was weak for sure. What do you guys think about the over? I think Pinktober was a good overall event. I'm not liking what Derby is doing. I feel like they haven't had a multi-day in so long. Love what TGT is doing. He expanded. I think Joe, you played there. I think all you guys. He expanded. He added tables. He added like 6 more tables, and he has an expansion where the bar used to be. Happy about that. Silks, they had their 250 Halloween. The turnout was weak too. I think same reasons, the election and the storm. That tournament is always solid. The structure is on point and everything. I think he is traveling, so he hasn't put the schedule for December. He always has the Winter Poker Open. The schedule is not up yet. This month we have a little bit of action at Hard Rock. We have a couple of multi-days. I don't know if you guys are playing. There's the 600, like I think 2 weeks, 2 weekends back to back, multi-days, 600 and a 250 multi-day.
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, the 600's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow and
Friday, Saturday. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
That's a good structure too. It's 40-minute levels, I believe. And to add on to the stuff you're talking about, other tournaments, TGT, I'm like actively trying to keep up with stuff they're running, because they ran a pretty good multi-day tournament several weeks ago, and I think that they're starting to like attract my attention a lot. So I think whatever they're doing, I think it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't been to Derby, so I can't really like remark on that. And Silks is pretty far away, so it would have to be like pretty big for me to kind of be driving all the way over there.
Yeah, I love the fact that Hard Rock is doing 40-minute levels lately.
I love 40-minute levels, especially on day 2. I always say it. 30 minutes on day 2 is a turbo, for the fact that pots are bigger on day 2. People tank longer because the decisions matter on day 2. Day 2 always should be 40 minutes. Anything 30 minutes on day 2 is garbage.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Gabe just played the Wednesday Grinders tournament. He said that also overlaid.
I saw.
So they're missing guarantees here and there.
100%. Guys, let's wrap it up with the questions from the chat. There's a bunch of questions for Joe. I'm just looking up the post.
Gabe and I were going to go to Cherokee soon in like a month for more tournaments, and Cherokee got hit really hard with the hurricane too, or nearby. So we're wondering about that turnout too. See if it's going to be similar to what Tampa's experiencing.
Cherokee's turnout is always big. Eugene Casta. I don't want to mention his last name. I'm going to butcher it. Gene is a grinder at Hard Rock. Big fan of you, Joe. He said, I have such a tremendous respect for this man. Marking this on my calendar. Well said, Gene. Will Muhammad. He's a very good player. Looking forward to this one. It's mostly comments. We have one question for you, Joe. Shannon Blank. Shout out to Shannon. She said, such a nice person, too.
Shannon is your student, right?
I coached her twice or two or three times.
Yeah.
Chad Kitchen, shout out to Chad. He said, keeps me on my toes every time he's at the table. Great player and is always smiling. Facts. Danny Lobato, shout out to Danny. He said, great guy. Jessica Landaverde. She's a dealer at Hard Rock. Shout out to Jess. She said, XOXO. Just kisses and hugs. Daniel Paz. Daniel's a grinder and a dealer on the circuit. Shout out to Daniel. He said, one of the best people that I know and a great player. Well said. Marsha Wolak. Shout out to Marsha. Awesome guy.
Marsha
Marsha's a crusher. Teresa Berard. She's used to be a dealer on the circuit too. She's a grinder at Hard Rock now. Great person. Very humble. Well said, Teresa. This is the question here, Joe. Tuan Nguyen says, what do you do? What do you do to get over bad beats when you're playing so well and getting it in ahead?
Yeah, we mentioned that if you're still bothering about it, you don't understand the game you're playing. It's just part of the game.
Well said. And then he says, always a pleasure playing with you at the tables, Josias. Mike Rossi answered the question. He said, never get emotional. Just keep moving to the next OP. Bad beats and bad runouts are inevitable. Never let it tilt you. Tuan says, thanks for the kind words, brother. Really needed it. Jimmy Farnsworth, shout out to the GOAT. He says, pimp. Just one word, pimp. Jeremy Costa, shout out to Jeremy. He used to be a grinder here locally, and he moved, forgot what state he moved to. True sportsman and an ambassador for the game itself. Well said.
Thank you.
And we have a couple comments on Instagram. Cara Michelle, shout out to Cara. Love him, can't wait to listen. Joao Luis Poker, put fire emoji. Danny Smith, shout out to Danny, put the GOAT. D and GOAT emoji. That's all we got.
Good,
okay,
good.
guys, do you have any comments before we wrap this up?
Sounds like everybody loves Joe. I missed the beginning, so I'll have to tune back in and see what
Joe is
what the
popular,
story's
and
all
I didn't
about.
know it. I mean, when I put
We
the
block the ones that hate me.
yeah, no
smart.
hate, no haters. Actually, yeah, you're one of the few that don't have any haters.
Yeah, publicly.
Probably okay. There's a couple of haters on the down low.
Yeah.
I doubt you have haters.
But one thing I would like to mention when this question about tilting, right? One of the most difficult aspects of anything in life, and poker, of course, is the same. It's knowing yourself. If you don't know yourself, it's very difficult to interact with all aspects of life, with your opponents, with the environment. I think it's a non-stop job we have in terms of learning who we are in different situations, in different environments, in different moments in our lives, and apply to poker in different stages of the tournament and stuff like this. This is this is a very important aspect, I think.
Self-discovery is huge. I think if you can beat poker, you can beat anything in life, any other, whether it's business, whether it's school, because you need to be the best version of yourself to be able to beat poker. Everything has to be in place, mentally, physically. That's why I talk about the routine before the session or after this, or taking beats and just doing a tournament. Poker is hard. Poker, I always say, unlike basketball or any other discipline or tennis or whatever sport it is, it never gets easy. Like some disciplines get easier when you get really good at it. Poker never gets easy. I always say you can play against 30 of the worst players and still can't beat them. You never get to a point where you can like sit back and relax and you're like too good for everybody and you can just beat the game consistently. It's constant. You always have to stay on your game or you're going to fall back and stop winning. It's insane.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's been fun.
It was a pleasure, bro.
Of course, it's been fun talking. Shane, too bad we got you on late.
Yeah, my bad.
You're always welcome to come on the pod. Thank you guys for coming, Gabe and Shane. Josias, you're a beast, my man. Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll see you at the tables. Guys, see you at the felt.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for coming on.